What's up, traders? It's Mark Sebastian, your only option. And today we're talking Bitcoin ETFs. So with that, let's dig in. All right, it finally happened. They listed options on the Bitcoin ETFs. Started with IBIT, IBIT, but we'll be getting, I think, multiples of these Bitcoin ETF options very shortly. Now, what we have right now is a pretty good look on how these ETFs have been moving, but we only have 1 day of implied volatility, and that's currently 58, or DEWI. This is where my access to deep market crypto and deep market analytics is so valuable, because I can go over to Amber Data Pro and I can pull up their DVol snapshot. It gives me a look at where skew is, how spot vol has moved. But I like this chart, the DVol snapshot, and this is a look at where implied volatility is in the Bitcoin ETF. In Bitcoin as a whole, and Bitcoin ETFs are going to trade with the Bitcoin options that are already listed over on Deribit or LedgerX. So where we are historically is, relatively low to where we've been over the last, relatively low of where we've been over the last week, over the last year. So this is a 1 year snapshot. Over the last year, we're right about at the midpoint of where implied volatility has. When implied volatility gets into the 50s, into the low 50s, or below 50, that is the time to be buying Bitcoin options. When it gets into the 70s and 80s, as you can see, that is when it is really high. So right now, we're right around the midpoint for implied volatility. Let's take a look at the volumes on IBIT. So this is its first day, and it's already traded 85,000 contracts. We've only been open for an hour and 15 minutes. That's a really, really torrid pace. What is especially interesting is the ratio of calls to puts. 75,000 calls, 10,000 puts. This is one-way order flow. Net deltas, they bought about $3.4 million worth of premium. They've gotten along about 500,000 deltas, so 500,000 shares of IBIT using options. So we've had a lot of net buying to start the day. Let's look at the options themselves and what's been active. As you can see, the most active option, and this is really far out of the money, has been the December 65 calls today. We also have action on the 55s and the 60s. Going out to January, again, you can see we've got the 55 calls that have a lot of action. Might be a diagonal spread that they have put up here. So what is a diagonal? They buy the 55 calls in January, sell the 65 calls in January. Let's take a look and see if there's any large block trades on its very first day of trading. And the answer is yes. And you know what? They're not completely tied. We had a trader in 2 blocks buy 10,000 of the 55 calls. And we have traders separately buying the 65 calls. They paid 90. They looks like they bid all the way up to $1. So this is still frothy behavior. What's interesting, it's frothy behavior, but when you look at DVol, the implied volatility is not that high. Toward maybe a little bit elevated, but not that high. So there is room for the vol to go higher, especially if this frothy buying continues. But what I would say is I can't wait to dig in on this. I'm looking forward to trading it. One of the things we really like about Bitcoin is that it's so momentum based. It goes up, 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 and then when it's going down, it tends to move. The previous day tends to correlate to the current day. So when it's been up the day before, it tends to be up the following day. when it's been down, it tends to be down. There is a correlation between the movement. So right now we're in this high momentum phase where it's been climbing and climbing and climbing. And you have this frothy call buying. And you have really the realized volatility is how much it's actually moving is kind of a little bit ahead of where they're pricing in options, which tells me they're expecting movement to slow a little bit. And last but not least, on the realized vol, IBIT's been moving about $2 a day over the last 10 days. That's going to be about, call it almost 5% a day. So that is going to be a pretty decent amount of realized volatility. Getting back to the options, as I look at term structure, December is the cheapest, and as you go back, it gets a little more expensive. There's a lot to unpack here, a lot to trade. And the way I plan to use options is, one, because of the structure of these options, I'm going to want to spread. And what do you mean by that? Well, if I'm going to buy the 60 calls, they're about a 62% implied volatility. The 70 calls in Jan are a 67% volatility. So there's upside demand for calls. So what I want to do is buy near them. If I'm bullish, I want to buy near the money, sell out of the money. On the bearish side, you kind of get the exact same formation. So it kind of looks like it has a smile to it, the way the options are. The cheapest options are near the money, and as you get further away, the implied volatility goes up and up and up. That is indicative of what we've seen in internet stocks in the year 2000, like Yahoo back then. So there is I think, a lot of opportunity to play these names via long options, via the spread. I need implied volatility to go up more before I'm interested in selling. If the implied volatility is not above 65, I am not an option seller in IBIT. If it's below 50, I am buying options with both hands. Around 55 to 60, that is my spread level. So that is what I'm seeing in implied volatility of these options to start, what I'm seeing in the flows. And, I can't wait to dig in. I'm excited to start trading this with you guys. But this is a seminal moment for Bitcoin. A seminal moment. This signifies that Bitcoin is now a full participant in the overall market. So buckle up, dig in. We're going to trade. All right, folks. I'm Mark Sebastian. I am your only option. Join tomorrow, 1 p.m. Eastern time. I need you to join Andrew to talk his zero theta strategy. It's actually a great strategy for crypto. So if you haven't seen it, you want to join, link is in this email. If you're watching on YouTube, like and subscribe. Leave me a question or a comment. I'm Mark Sebastian. I am your only option. I hope you have a great day. Let's dig into these Bitcoin options.